For over a decade, a stretch of windswept beach on Long Island held a dark secret. The Gilgo Beach murders, a case that has haunted New York and the nation, involves a series of grim discoveries that began in 2010 but stretched back through time, connecting victims from the 1990s all the way to 2010. This is a story of a long and winding investigation, groundbreaking forensic science, and the relentless pursuit of justice for the victims and their families. It all started in December 2010, during the search for a missing woman named Shannon Gilbert. Police were combing the thick brush along Ocean Parkway when they stumbled upon human remains, but they weren't Shannon's. They belonged to Melissa Barthelemy, who had vanished a year earlier in 2009. The discovery was shocking, but it was only the beginning. Within days, 3 more bodies were found in the same area. Megan Waterman, Amber Costello, both last seen in 2010, and Maureen Brainard-Barn, who had been missing since 2007. The media dubbed these 4 women the Gilgo Four. Their disappearances shared chilling similarities, and investigators began to suspect they were dealing with a serial killer. As the search expanded, more remains were uncovered along the parkway. Some were unidentified for years. Jessica Taylor, whose partial remains were first found in 2003, was one of them. Another set of remains, discovered in 2000, was eventually identified as Valerie Mack. The timeline of this horror stretched back even further to 1993 with the case of Sandra Costilla. The question loomed for years. Who was responsible for these terrible crimes? For 13 long years, the case grew cold, but investigators never gave up. Then, in July 2023, a major breakthrough. Police arrested Rex Heuermann, a 59-year-old architect living a seemingly quiet suburban life in Massapequa Park, just a short drive from where the bodies were found. The arrest sent shockwaves through the community. How could a family man, a professional working in Manhattan, be connected to such a dark and complex case? The answer lay in a trail of digital and physical evidence painstakingly pieced together by a dedicated task force. Investigators had re-examined old evidence with new technology. Key to the case were burner phones used to contact the victims. Using sophisticated cell phone data analysis, they mapped the locations of these phones, and the pings led them back to areas in Massapequa Park where Heuermann lived and Midtown Manhattan where he worked. But they needed a direct link. That's where a discarded pizza box comes into the story. Investigators surveilled Heuermann and collected a pizza crust he threw into a trash can in Manhattan. DNA from that crust was a match to a male hair found on the burlap sack used to wrap one of the victims, Megan Waterman. This was the crucial piece of evidence they needed to make an arrest. Heuermann was initially charged with the murders of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. Later, he was also charged with the murder of Maureen Brainard, completing the connection to the Gilgo Four. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered more. Searches of his home, computers, and devices revealed a disturbing history of online searches related to the victims and their families, as well as violent content. Heuermann's wife was out of state during the time of each of the Gilgo Four murders, which prosecutors say gave him the opportunity to commit the crimes. In early 2024, the charges expanded. Heuermann was indicted for the murders of Jessica Taylor and Sandra Costilla. A hair found on Taylor's remains was genetically linked to him. Another hair found on the coverings of Sandra Costilla, who was killed in 1993, was also linked to Heuermann through mitochondrial DNA analysis. This brought the total number of alleged victims to 6. Later, a 7th charge was added for the murder of Valerie Mack. Heuermann has pleaded not guilty to all charges. His defense attorneys have consistently challenged the evidence, arguing it's circumstantial and that their client is a hardworking family man, not a killer. The case has now entered the critical pre-trial phase, setting the stage for what will be one of the most closely watched trials in recent history. In early 2025, a significant legal battle was won by the prosecution when a judge ruled that key DNA evidence, including the sample from the pizza crust, would be admissible at trial. This was a major step forward for the district attorney's office. Then, on January 13, 2026, Judge Timothy Mazzei made a firm announcement. The trial is set to begin shortly after Labor Day in September 2026. The judge was clear, stating that the trial will proceed regardless of any further challenges, emphasizing the need to move forward for the sake of the victims' families who have waited so long for answers. In response, Heuermann's defense team has been aggressive. They filed a massive, nearly 180-page motion arguing for several things. They want to suppress certain pieces of evidence, questioning the legality of how that pizza crust DNA was collected from a public trash can. They are also seeking to have the charge for Sandra Costilla's murder dismissed, arguing that a single hair found on her clothing is enough to link Heuermann to a crime that happened over 30 years ago. The defense is also pushing to explore alternate suspects, a common strategy in high-profile cases. Despite these challenges, the prosecution, led by District Attorney Ray Tierney, remains confident. They believe the mountain of evidence from the DNA and cell phone data to Heuermann's alleged online activities paints a clear and convincing picture. The next court date is set for March 17, 2026, where the judge will likely rule on some of the defense's motions. Each hearing brings us one step closer to the trial. The Gilgo Beach case is a powerful example of how persistence and advancements in forensic science can bring new life to cold cases. Techniques like genetic genealogy, which were not available when the investigation began, have been instrumental.